It's a Festivus for the rest of us. One of the most anticipated pitching prospects in recent seasons is heading up to the big leagues, and we have full coverage of it. We're going to be joined by Theo Tollefson of Twins Daily. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. I'm one of your hosts, David Brown, a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America since 2012, and a professional ball writer at large since 1998. So a while. It's been a long while. And across cyberspace is your other host, Brandon Warren. And what are you up to, Brandon?
Oh, man, yeah. It's nice and sunny here in Minnesota. Not as hot as it is in Arizona, and it's only going to get hotter here with the promotion coming up. And also joining us is our friend Theo Tollefson. You have probably seen his writing at Twins Daily, or he's on the postcast, the Locked On Twins postcast every now and then. Theo, what up?
Not much. How you guys doing?
We're all right. We're all right. How about you, Dave?
I'm doing fine. I cut myself shaving to be transparent. But unfortunately, blood is not transparent. So it's you guys can all ignore it, right? On YouTube, you're not going to pay attention to that at all.
Just keep dabbing. Just keep dabbing and you'll be all right. By the way, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100.
Why is this show different today? Why do we have three people here? Why is Theo Tollefson joining us? Well, the Twins are promoting someone special from the minor leagues. Chris Paddack has gone on the IL with arm fatigue, and his turn in the rotation comes up Thursday. Ronnie Enriquez has been brought up in the meantime to fill up in the bullpen until that spot comes up. But reports say that a young man, David Festa, is coming up from the minors. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's 24 years old. He's a top 100 or so prospect, depending on who you listen to. He's got a four-seam slider changeup mix, and he's the Twins' best pitching prospect. And Theo Tollefson is joining us because he's seen him pitch. He's talked to him. He's got special insights that Brandon and I don't have about the young man, David Festa. Theo, let me ask you, is the time right for David Festa to come and join the Twins rotation?
I think it is, yes. I mean, he has been one of the best strikeout pitchers in all of AAA this entire season. He's had the best strikeout numbers, if not second best, in the International League, which accumulates 20 out of the 30 teams in AAA. And he has just done his work. I mean, he had a season high 93 pitches is the last time out. He pitched Thursday night with the St. Paul Saints for a home game against the Toledo Mud Hens, went 5 2/3 innings, had a bit of a shaky fourth inning, but I think, I've probably seen about 4 or 5 of his starts in person this season, all Saints home games, of course. But he's got a good head on his shoulders. I mean, he's taking things in stride and he knows what he needs to work on. And, even though velocity is not his top thing, his pitch mix, his selection, getting hitters to chase everything he's thrown at them, he's really mastered that command. And I think it's definitely the right time. Obviously, the Twins had the opportunity here. If they really wanted to, with the off day on Monday, they could have just pushed everyone up a day and, just gone through the rotation with 4 guys and not 5 and just kind of let it play out until then. But with Jay Jackson being DFA'd over this previous weekend, that opened a 40-man roster spot. And I think they were kind of waiting to see what would happen with Chris Paddack in terms of what they would do, whether it would have been Festa or the other top prospect with the St. Paul Saints, Brooks Lee, if his opportunity was going to come through, which it will be soon, even though it's not now. But yeah, I mean, Festa's a great guy and it couldn't happen to anyone better right now.
Hey, so why not Caleb Bosley? Because he is 30. He's basically who he is at this point. It's not as though the Twins are in any hurry to rush prospects. Festa's not a young prospect either, so don't get me wrong. But Bosley's numbers to me are good enough too, where I wouldn't be opposed to giving him a look. What do you think of that?
I mean, you're not wrong. He just won International League Pitcher of the Week this previous week for his start on, I believe that was Saturday night for the Saints. So, I mean, in terms of regular rest, he would still have 4 days off and then called up. But I think it's the fact that they've already called him up 2 times and sent him back down. And then eventually you run out of options and you're going to have to make those roster crunches. So why risk it when you could have that open 40-man roster spot and you have the right guy who's doing everything right? And obviously, as I mentioned during his last start, he had a few things get away from him, but he had excellent command of the strike zone, no walks. The 4th inning, he gave up 4 straight hits. One of them was a home run and, put the Mudheads back in the lead, but his offense really came back and carried him. So I'm really looking forward to how he's going to translate to work with the catchers up there, because I know he's never pitched to Ryan Jeffers or Jair Camargo, but when you look at the guys he's been with in St. Paul, actually Jair Camargo, so I meant it's Jeffers and Vasquez. Apologies for that, my correction. But Camargo is someone he's been pitching to for a long while. Patrick Winkle is another guy. He may not be known for his offense down in St. Paul, but he's got a great relationship with Festa. They've been coming up through the system together since 2022. Alex Isolo is another guy. So I think it's just going to see how he translates with these guys he's never pitched to before, and we'll see where he goes from there.
Is that entire roster catchers?
You would think it is. I mean, they got more catchers on the active roster than outfielders right now. I mean, it's AAA baseball. I mean, 4 listed catchers and then 2 listed outfielders with Deshaun Kersey Jr. and Matt Wallner, and that's it. Even though obviously they got plenty of guys who can still play out there, just some better than others.
My biggest hesitation about getting on the bandwagon for Festa has been the amount that he's pitched. They seem to have been putting restrictor plates on him, and he's pitched a little more in recent weeks than he had earlier, but he's still averaging about 5 innings a go. He has gotten to 6 a couple times. You mentioned his pitch count in the low 90s in a previous start. Why were they doing that? Why do you think they were? I think it's just a matter of saving bullets, or what's the reason?
Yeah, I think that's been the philosophy with this organization with their young arms over, I would definitely say post 2020, coming back from the no minor league season with the pandemic. I think they've definitely been a lot more on the side of caution. Now, he's not the most extreme version they have within the minor league system. I would argue Mark Araya is someone they are babying like crazy. I don't think he's thrown over 4 innings or even that this season, and his numbers are not as great, and he is their number 2 team prospect per MLB pipeline. I know other rankings have him pretty high up there too, right behind Festa usually. So yeah, I mean, I know back in April when I was talking to Festa and did a big feature on him and his build up with the pitch count, they started him out at like 60 for his first start and then moved it up slowly but surely to like 80 by the end of the month. And, they kind of took the leash off him with those limitations at the beginning of May, because the argument they have as player development is, we still are getting these guys out of spring training. They're getting into the routine of live games and how the rotation works itself out. And with the minor league season, no matter what level you're at, unless you're in the complex league or Dominican Summer League, you have Mondays off no matter what, except usually the 4th of July week, so next week. But, having 6 straight games, you might be facing a team twice in one series when you're only playing them for 6 straight games. So I think there's some parts of that. I think they will probably just let them go 5 tomorrow. It's a unique place to have your major league debut. It's not Colorado, which could be a pitcher's nightmare, but not every pitcher makes their major league debut in Colorado and goes bad. But, you still got the humidified balls. Roof's probably going to be closed with how hot it will probably be during the day game in Arizona. So, yeah, we'll see what comes.
We're not saying that he's Paul Skeens, but I did notice with Skeens, the Pirates were very conservative with him even this year, even though I don't fully understand their philosophy there, because he was throwing well over 100 pitches when he was in college. It was weekly, so it's different, I guess. But Skeens has thrown more and more as the season has gone, and they haven't been as restrictive. Do you foresee something like that if Festa pitches well? They won't be hesitant to get him up into 90 pitches or 100 pitches, even if he's doing well.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, we've got Simeon Woods Richardson, who started the season down in St. Paul and has worked his way into this rotation. I mean, granted, he hasn't gotten 7 yet, but I mean, there's still, as long as he's cruising and keeping things in his command, even if the offense isn't picking him up in his starts, I mean, they're letting him go 6 innings, maybe working into the 7th if all works well. So I foresee that being the case too. We just don't know what we're going to get from him tomorrow. I mean, obviously there'll be jitters for the debut. It's a big moment, and we'll see what comes of it.
Why don't we take a break, Brandon? That's a good time for a commercial.
Yeah, let's do that. When we come back to, I want to ask about if he's on the Bailey Ober plan. Look at his Ks per walk over the last 2 starts, because actually it's he's kind of been flipped on its head. And also the AAA run environment. We'll talk about that as well, because it's going to be a little different here in the big leagues. But again, first, a couple quick words from some of our sponsors. First, we got to give some love to Tax Network. As guys who've been writing, I know that we each get to deal with the fortunate or unfortunate tax liabilities that come with being independent contractors and having to report your earnings. Tax Network is a sponsor of Locked On Twins, and we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for the Twins, whether it's prospects like we're doing right now, off-season draft, which is coming up here pretty soon, all that stuff. It's year-round. And you know what else is year-round? Collections season. Because just because tax season's over, just because that one day in April has passed, doesn't mean the IRS isn't going to keep coming after you for unfiled or unpaid taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages. They can levy your bank accounts and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or if you finally hit one of those parlays that paid out big, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockdown, or you can look at the link below in the description. It's Tax Network USA. Let them help you out with those pesky taxes. Also got to give some love to SupplyHouse here. I've got the wrong thing on the screen, so I'm going to pull that up here. There we go. Get your supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. So you can shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping coast to coast. If you need help with an order, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the game and talk to a real person every single time. Also, if you're a pro in the skilled trade, you can get a competitive advantage by joining the Supply House free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. So join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks. That's supplyhouse.com. And if you want to join the Trade Master program, it's supplyhouse.com/TM.
So I would say one of the things that kind of pumped the brakes for me a little bit on Festa was he's got a 3.77 ERA, which is not, it's not 1.77, it's not 2.77. But maybe that's a little inflated because of the occasional home run issues that he has. He's allowed 9 homers and 59 2/3 innings. But when you look at the environment, Brandon alluded to this earlier, in AAA, it's a pretty good hitting environment right now, maybe even better than Major League Baseball. I'm not saying they have better hitters, but it might be easier to hit home runs in AAA and score runs than in other times. Does that factor into his statistics?
I think it absolutely does. I think we haven't seen a greater divide in terms of the pitching talent that is at the major league level compared to AAA. I mean, I think there's one guy in the International League who has a season ERA under 3, and he's thrown over 50 innings. So it's definitely a different environment out there. It's crazy because, and this is no dig to someone like Tony Kemp, but he's already got 6 home runs in about 40-some games with the St. Paul Saints, and he's never been a home run hitter I think that's very telling of the offensive heavy environment within some of these games. I mean, the last one I saw was on Sunday in person, and that was a very bad day for Louis Varland, and I felt very bad for seeing him give up 5 home runs in 2 1/3 innings. And, his last 2 times up in the major leagues, he only had 2 runs in about 9 1/3 innings. So it's a huge difference. I can't really put my finger on what it is specifically that is causing, AAA hitters to have these crazy offensive numbers compared to major league hitters who can't keep up with, 101 miles per hour that they're constantly seeing now. So I think there's just that huge difference. And I think we're reaching toward that peak in baseball where velocity is not going to be an issue until it is. And I think we're fast approaching that. And, what Festa has going for him at least is he's not the hardest thrower in the Saints rotation. And he's been able to get things work with swing and miss stuff.
I've got I pulled up the list on Fangraphs. I don't know how often they update AAA data, but there's 5 guys who have sub-4 ERAs in more than 50 innings, and you're going to love this list because only one guy is under 25. So Tommy Romero is 311, Jonathan Diaz is 326, AJ Bluebaugh, which is just a tremendous name, is 358, Kenny Rosenberg is 384, and I know you're going to like this one. Dallas Keuchel, 393. He made the start for Milwaukee today. Definitely do not go and look how that went. Oh, you know what? I do have a couple other names here. Yeah, it's not many guys. Alan Winans is none. It's very limited. So the run environment, like you said, has been extremely tricky. What I want to ask you is, so we all kind of saw the plan that Bailey Ober was on when he came up. And I know a lot of I don't want to say the casuals, but the people who, the just let him go, he's on a roll, whatever kind of guys and gals really didn't like how Ober was handled early on. We just saw him throw a complete game. I think that he was protected coming up allowed that to happen. We have Festa with a little over 103 innings in 2 years ago, 92 1/3 last year, 59 2/3 so far this year. Do you think it's going to be an Ober plan kind of situation for as long as he's in the big leagues?
I think it will be. I mean, I would say he was definitely on pace to eclipse his innings he had last year. I think he would have thrown over 100, and I think it's still likely, as long as he remains healthy, that he'll be able to do so between his minor league and major league time. Whatever that plans out to be between now and the end of the season, we'll see what it gets to. But, I mean, that's the thing. Ober, I think maybe threw 100 innings once before last season, and then he was at 144. So now he's probably going to be, I would say, as long as he's healthy, he'll be in that 140 to 160 range by the end of the season. I think that's a safe assumption. And if he gets more, that's a bonus. And obviously, his complete game on Saturday, that was Saturday, right? Yeah, it was Saturday, was a huge stepping stone in showing what he's got, being efficient. Obviously, a couple pitches got away from him, and you just got to tip your hat to the hitter when they get those home runs. But, his offense definitely brought it back, so he could do his part to stay and get that achievement.
Well, and 140 to 160 doesn't mean what it used to. That's the new 180 to 200. So it's not that surprising. I do want to get one more quick one in before we go back to Dave. With Chris Paddack going on the IL, does any part of you think when Paddack comes back, they might use him in the bullpen, whether it's right away or later down the season, to kind of ease that transition back from TJ surgery? Because as much as we've kind of bandied about how the bullpen has some good arms, they are also a little short right now. Cole Sands might be a piggyback option behind Festa if they end up going that route. Again, depending on how long Festa goes. I think Varland and Paddack could be two just in-house natural boosts to the bullpen if they decide to go that route. But I'm curious to see if Paddack is going to be coming out of the bullpen at some point later on.
From my understanding, from what I saw from all the Twins beat reporters who were in Arizona yesterday to report Paddack going on the shelf, the Twins front office is hopeful that they can get him back for one start, maybe before the All-Star break. What that could play out like, I don't know. But it seems like they're still going to treat him as a starter whenever he does return. Obviously, at the end of last season, we saw what they did with him. Obviously, coming back from Tommy John surgery, didn't have much time. 2 years ago, they were hoping to do the same thing with Kenta Maeda if they were still in postseason contention to what they did with Paddack. And I think there's definitely more likelihood Varland will take that path this season than Paddack right now. and he just needs some rest, and that's really all there all is to it. So we'll see what comes of this rest, and worst case scenario, yeah, you move him to the bullpen, and hopefully at that point you have another rotation arm added via the trade.
Here's a question that people always ask that it never comes to fruition, but I'll ask anyway. Does a 6-man rotation make any sense? Is that possible?
I don't think it's necessary right now. I think if Festa does his part to stay a part of the rotation to force the Twins' hand, then it could be a possibility. But I think at least this first time up in the major leagues, they're going to have him go 2 or 3 times, depending how Paddock's recovering, and then option him back down to kind of let things play out. Because you'll still have, it'll be out over the 81 game mark, because I think they're going to be playing that, if not tomorrow, then sometime this weekend in Seattle. So you'll be halfway through the season, but there's still enough time where, why risk rushing this minor league arm? They didn't do it with Simeon Woods Richardson. He was back and forth for the last 2 years before he got this turnaround, and he's still only 23 years old. And yeah, Festa's a little bit older, but he'll make his way around.
Good time for a break, maybe.
Yeah, let's take a quick pause. Before we do that, I just want to remind you that you can catch every pitch of the Twins hometown broadcast with Chris Atterbury and his rotating cast of characters in the color commentary chair on Sirius XM. Just download the SXM app, search the word Twins, and you'll find them. It's SWR, Simeon Woods Richardson, who Theo just mentioned, taking on Ryan Nelson. First pitch, 8:40 p.m., so get excited. Beyond that, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, I want to ask about the last 3 starts, because there's been a little change in Festa's, maybe not approach, but definitely how hitters have fared against him. So we'll be back in just a second. Our friends at PrizePicks want you to know that they are America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because it's just you and the numbers. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can join the PrizePicks community. And also, you don't have to play against those folks who are doing the algorithms or entering 50 entries into a 100-entry contest and really trying to nudge you out. And you can also win 100 times your money. So you turn $10 into 1,000 with as little as 4 correct picks, if you go with the risky ones especially. And also, too, with the finals over, hoops action is not over on PrizePicks. There's women's hoops going on, whether you're a big fan of Nafisa Collier or Caitlin Clark, or there's superstars, established superstars like Brianna Stewart, or as I mentioned, Collier. You can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. The links are absolutely on a roll. And also, PrizePicks available in more than 30 states across the country, including Cali, Texas, and Georgia. Make sure to check out if your state is eligible and available. Otherwise, download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, the last 3 starts, Theo, for Mr. Festa, he's gone 16 2/3 innings, which 5 innings and about 5 innings plus 2 outs or thereabouts. 4.32 ERA. ERA doesn't matter that much in a 3-start span, but 22 strikeouts against 1 walk. When I browse his page on Baseball Reference, walks have kind of been the thing he's had to conquer at each level. So to your point of if you think he's ready, that might be the indication here. Now, he has allowed 3 home runs and a slash of 242, 277, 484, which sounds like the Byron Buxton special. Are you encouraged by the fact that the walks have gone down, and so you're not as worried about maybe the high slugging percentage?
Absolutely. I think that was something he really took notice of after every start early in the season. And, I think part of that came with the pitch count limit, kind of messing with his head a little bit. Just, I only have X amount of pitches to throw here as I'm building up for the season, so let's try to make the most of it. And sometimes those get away from you, and that's what happened with him. But now, without as many limitations on how many pitches he throws per start, we are seeing him just getting knocked around more with hits when it comes to his flaws versus, getting on, walks will haunt, as we well know from the Metrodome days. Yep. And that has not really been the case. He's only had 1 game with 3 walks since May 17th. and 2 multi-walk games since then. So it's been a good month, a great stretch. Now I will address this is coming off of Fangraphs. His BABIP batting average on balls in play. It's not the most spectacular. That's 352. So that's showing where things are at. But at the same time, he got 14 swings and misses during his last start, which is still pretty solid, especially when you consider what happened to him in that 4th inning, but still came away with the victory. So I wouldn't really take too much concern in that.
Our guest today is Theo Tollefson. He's a freelance journalist, but you might know him from Twins Postcast, Locked On Twins Postcast, and other ventures around. And he's a journalist who has been to see David Festa play and other players from St. Paul Saints and talk to these guys. One thing I wanted to know in one of our final segments, Theo, is David was a 13th round draft pick. Almost 14th, I think, and late in that round, and he's become a top 100 prospect. As succinctly as you can, how did that happen?
Well, it's funny enough. I know John Vitas, the play-by-play and media relations guy for the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles with the Twins Low A affiliate. He's been talking Festa's praises this entire time. Today, with his call-up being announced, he was just a shortstop in high school, and he was only going to Seton Hall on that, and then he turned himself into a starting pitcher and now one of the top 100 prospects in all Major League Baseball to get this opportunity. So, it's one of those rare findings. I believe, let me just pull this up real quick so I can make sure I'm getting the scout's name correctly, as Vitas tweeted out earlier today. John Wilson, he's been a long time scout with the Twins scouting department. He's the one who found him at Seton Hall, and it's really just a credit to what he noticed in Festa while he was still in college and making that difficult transition from being a full-time shortstop into a full-time pitcher. So I think, that's one of those later round stories. And, now we only have 20 rounds in the MLB draft and no longer 40, 50 plus. So anyone who's pretty much going past the 10th round is going to be one of those special cases of if they can make it past and get to these opportunities of high praise from where they started, we got to take advantage of that and just let them soak in their moment as much as we are doing that for them and realizing how hard it is still to make that journey to the major leagues.
Yeah, 13th round, pick 399, 3 picks after him in that round. He will be the first 13th round pick from that year to debut. From the 12th round, Ben Rice, who was recently called up by the Yankees, and then Landon Roop, who has just pitched 10 games in the big leagues, was drafted by the Giants. And then 14th round pick, actually, Jordan Leisure, who has spent some time in the White Sox bullpen. So it hasn't been unprecedented that guys for the 2021 draft late have made it to the big leagues, but it certainly hasn't been many. Now, Theo, the one thing I wanted to ask you before I'm done asking questions, and I don't know if Dave will have another one as well, is in your estimation, what is his strikeout pitch, or what's the pitch? Everybody throws a fastball for the most part. What should we be watching for when he's trying to put away, whether it's Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, or whoever in his first start?
It's actually his fastball because during his last start, he was trying to go back and forth between his changeup and slider, and those weren't working as well against hitters, and the Mud Hens were reading those really well off his hands and getting more of their hits on his off-speed stuff than his fastball. So, yeah, not to have a fastball hitting 100 miles per hour pretty constantly and still getting that strikeout stuff is a credit to the work he's put into that pitch. So I am curious to see how the off-speed stuff works tomorrow. I will keep my eye on that for sure. But yeah, if you want to see him in 2 strike counts, I would expect that.
Well, and he's one of those guys who has one of the high carry fastballs, right?
Yes.
So it's who else has that on the Twins? I think Joe Ryan has that. Bailey Ober has had that.
Mm-hmm.
Between that and working up in the zone, you can make some guys look pretty foolish.
Yeah.
Dave, what you got?
One thing I wanted to know, not necessarily about Festa, obvious or not so obvious, who else on St. Paul do you think is going to be brought up to help the Twins before the season's over?
I just had a piece on this at Zone Coverage with the open 40-man spot before we had clarity of Chris Paddock's situation. I think that was the main thing we were waiting. So I had Brooks Lee first, not really counting on Paddock going the IL. Then it was Festa. I think Tony Kemp, considering he started the season with the Baltimore Orioles and got DFA'd when they called up Jackson Holiday early this season, and he's made a really strong veteran presence for that Saints clubhouse. I think there's a possibility, like Andrew Stevenson last year, he could get rewarded for that. Deshaun Kersey Jr., as long as he's still with this organization, I think he could have another opportunity to get that September call up. And then I think for the fun of it, I think Twins fans would love to see Randy Dobnak back up with a major league club. I mean, he's taken things in stride and really making the most of that contract he got back in 2019. But, he's pitched pretty solid. I would say this has definitely been his best season since the pandemic season. All things considered, because he was battling injuries the last 2 years. 2021 was not so great for him, but he's got a solid 4 ERA in there, lower 4s, which with the offensive environment in AAA, I would equate that to like a 3.50 ERA to the majors, just because of that environment. So those are like my 5 guys.
By the way, Brooks Lee has homered 3 times since we hit record. So no, I'm kidding. He did homer today though, as this is coming out, and has been just incredible. But I think he's knocking on the doorstep. We'll see what happens there. Dave, what do you got?
That's I think a good note to end on. We thank Theo Tollefson for joining us and giving us some insight into David Festa, who's expected to make his major league debut Thursday night. Or Thursday afternoon.
Yep. 2:40 start time, I believe.
Little getaway day action.
Yep.
Very good. So middle of the day, generally speaking. But we thank Theo for joining us, and we look forward to maybe having him on again in the future. And for Brandon Warren, I'm Dave Brown, signing off again for Locked On Twins, and we are going to see you tomorrow night.